make your day richer than it was before. Got some good times knocking upon your front door.
Well, welcome everyone. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining us. We've got a great show today. But before we start, let's first do a view count, shall we? We are so close to 236,000 views. Let's see if we can get that during the show today. Now is a perfect time to just click that share button while you're watching live. Just click it and share the show to everybody you think needs to see the show. All right, let's begin, shall we? My first guest has a truly inspiring story of resilience and purpose. She's the co-founder of KeyStep, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting young adults who have aged out of the foster care system in North Carolina. Her passion for this work comes from her own experience as a former foster youth, and she's turned her journey into an incredible mission to help others thrive. Please welcome Deanna Terry. Thank you so much for being here. I know how busy you are, and so I'm thankful that you're taking the few minutes out of your day to talk to me today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Richard, to share about what we're doing here for our aging.
Yeah, and you've done you're like 3 months old. Like, you've done so much that we could make this into like a 6-part docuseries if we wanted to. But I want to start with like, what does it mean to age out of the foster care system?
It means jumping off a cliff. That's what it means. So the youth, they end up in different situations. 20% are unhoused the day that they leave care. Many end up back in the family environments that they were removed from because they don't have other options. Some, especially young women, end up in predatory relationships that are abusive because they don't have any place else to go. There's all kinds of things that they do for a place to stay under the guise of consent, which obviously creates a teen pregnancy issue. Some end up at shelter, some literally end up on the street, and it's avoidable. That's the point. It's avoidable.
Is it? Yeah. Does that mean like you turn 18 and then it's over? Is that how that works? Or like, what are the guidelines around that?
There are guidelines. Each state has different guidelines. So in North Carolina, I can speak for North Carolina, not other states. There is a program called LINKS. The counties are responsible for overseeing the 18 to 21, the benefits that they have. However, they have to be working or going to school in order to receive those benefits. So there's strings attached, which isn't a bad idea, but they're leaving foster care without GEDs, without high school diplomas, without transportation. So it can be very difficult to qualify for the program. If they do qualify, they receive $810 a month. Plus, they receive $3,000 a year that the worker is in control of for emergencies, utilities, car payment, whatever they may need, but they can't even get to that level. Then they have $1,500 a year to help with rent or deposits or first month's rent. So, however, again, there's strings attached. So if they can't meet those strings, then they're out in the cold. And what I'm finding in the 3 months that I've been working our program is most of our youth don't even have their high school diploma or their GED. So with that stumbling block, it's problematic.
And like I said, you've done so much in these 3 months, like more than I was in the nonprofit world for a long time, like more than a lot of nonprofits will do in a year. Can you talk about some of the stuff that you have done in this short amount of time?
I'd be happy to. So we started in late November. I decided I've been building the program development for a year and a half. We're still working on funding sources, but I decided to dip my toe in and say, hey, Can we get some holiday baskets together for the youth that we have? And the community response, and this was just through Nextdoor and my personal Facebook that I did this. And the community response was honestly a little bit overwhelming. And we had holiday baskets. The kids each received blanket, bed pillow, backpack, food, socks, hat, gloves, just the whole gamut. They really left with quite a bit. And we have a stock pantry. We have the community is really coming forward with helping keep this pantry stocked with food and hygiene and home essentials for the 20 that we have here in Union County.
I know also, I don't know if you want to talk about it or if you can, like the other things that you've done some amazing things with car payments.
Yes.
I mean, some
yes.
like truly remarkable, like and not saying that like having a stocked pantry is not life-changing, but like when people are thinking about this, like, oh great, like they're able to, but like you are making people able to get to work, to like live a life that they've never probably dreamed that they would be able to have.
Our youth are incredibly appreciative. So far we made a car payment for a youth who had been sick for 2 weeks. She'd been through her savings. She'd been through what resources she had. So we did make the car payment so she didn't get a repossessed car. We have sent sick packages for kids when they're sick with essential medicines, soup, et cetera, things you need. So we've sent those out. We have a host home for a youth. We're working on a second host home for another youth. We have a tutor that is working with one of our youth who needs an English tutor because her first language is Spanish. And we have a life coach volunteering to help a young man get on track and learn budgeting and all of those things. So yeah, we've done a lot.
Yeah. Yes. What I know right now, everyone is volunteer based. Yes. What kind of support do you need from people?
We need funding. So anyone that might be willing to volunteer with grant writing, it's just not my talent. So I have a lot of talents, and I'm going to start needing support. I just really wasn't expecting it to be this welcomed through the community, and I'm hoping we do have one person that's offering to help with that so far, but we need more. So funding, fundraising, sponsoring a fundraiser. Our young adults need a lot of things that the pantry cannot provide.
And is the pantry like an open, like, can you talk a little bit about that? Is that something that they can go in? Is that sort of just a term for where you're storing things? Can you talk a little bit about the pantry?
Sure. It's at a climate controlled storage unit, which is next to my business. I run my business out of there, so I'm always there. They can come when they want. They have to be let in, but they get to walk around. It's a large unit, 10 by 20. We have custom built shelves in there. Everything is very organized, and they get to choose what they want. And that's so important for them to make those choices, because often through their history, even at home, even before foster care, they didn't have a lot of choices. They don't know what they want. They don't know what they like. They get to foster care. Everything's donations that they're choosing things that don't quite fit them or they don't quite like because that's what's available to them.
Yeah.
So the pantry's been really important for them to start making some of those choices. Like a young lady, I wanted to try this, but I didn't want to spend the money. I'm like, well, now you get to try it for free and see if you like it. So it's things like that they're getting to do that are boosting their self-esteem and helping them learn how to make those small decisions. They can be very overwhelming. So I think the pantry is really important with that. It's a place for them to go. Stores can be very overwhelming for them. Mm-hmm. They are still for me at 55. It's very overwhelming for me to go in public. Social anxiety is a real issue with many former fosters.
What are the communities that you're serving or the state you're serving? Like, are you in an area or are you serving a larger, like all of North Carolina?
Currently, we are in Union County. That's where we're located. Because of the response, we're looking at opening up to other counties. I'll need more volunteers, funding, and support before I can completely open up to the state. But the long-term goal is to provide housing, transportation, educational opportunities for any former foster, and it is intended to eventually long-term be a nationwide program. That's the goal.
And who do you work with? Because obviously there has to be a connection between you and the young adults that are leaving the foster care system. So are there organizations that you're working with to find these people?
We are working on connecting with other nonprofits to be able to refer aged out fosters to us. Currently, we're working with DSS, so whoever they have in the Links program, they're referring those youth to us. So there are more than the 20 that we have. We just still haven't found them.
Yeah. Yes, they're everywhere, right? Yes.
Yes, they are. They are. They often don't have
Yeah.
cell phones. They often, yes. So it's just going to take the community going, hey, I know this youth, and they can refer them to us.
Is there something, because you said you've been kind of working on this for a year and a half, like what prompted this? And what prompted this so kind of quickly?
Well, program development's been in place for a year and a half. While I was building my business, now my business is at a place that I can focus on this full time, where before it's kind of part-time building the idea of the program. The program started with a dinner date, probably the most successful dinner date I've ever had in my life. And I happened to tell my story to this gentleman, which wasn't normal for me, and normally very secretive about that. Now the whole world knows. And he told me then, he said, I'm going to have a story to tell you one day. That day's not today, but I'm going to have a story to tell you about this someday. And not long after that, he said, remember when I told you I'd have a story to tell you? I said, yeah. He said, well, he said, my dad, my dad was in foster care and he left with nothing. I really related to what you had to say. And I've always wanted to start a foundation for aging out fosters. And I've decided that I want you to develop and run the program. So it is his company that is providing all administrative costs at this time. And the dinner date developed into a beautiful friendship and a co-foundership for the purpose of the youth. So that is how it got started. As far as starting the pantry, this was really me being, my co-founder prefers to remain anonymous at this time, but his plan was a little further out, a few more years. And I was like, oh, I've done all this work. Let's just see if we can get baskets for the kids. And then I met the kids and I told him, I said, I met the kids. He said, we're starting this now, aren't we? I said, yeah, we're starting this.
Yeah. Hate to break it to you, but today's the day. Yes.
Today's the day.
Yeah. So where can people go to support, to volunteer, to donate? What's the website or the place that's best to go and do that?
The website is the best place, www.keystepnc.org. They can go to the Get Involved page or the contact page to contact us, kind of see what's going on. The website's laid out, I think, pretty cleanly and self-explanatory.
Does this feel like such a full circle moment with your history, with your life story? Like, how does it feel to be you in this moment?
It's very full circle. It's made what I suffered have value. Both my daughters are involved with a KeyStep, which is a great family thing, breaking those generational issues.
Yeah.
It's been overwhelming. It's a little surreal still. I think I have people coming out the woodwork thanking me for all I'm doing, and I'm going, no, this is my privilege and my responsibility as a youth who made it. I left care homeless and pregnant, and I don't want any other youth to suffer that. If there's anything I can do to help that from not happening, because it's avoidable. It's with proper support, proper programs, and proper funding, we can lower the statistics. If you ask an average citizen, what do you think of fosters? They almost always immediately think they're not going to make it. They're
Yeah.
always going to struggle. And statistics tell us that 3% go to college, 50% end up addicted, 71% end up parents before 21, males and females. So we know the statistics are dire, but it's only because they don't have the support they need. It's not because they're too damaged or they're incapable. It's because they're left to jump off a cliff at 18.
Yeah.
Without having the proper tools growing up. They didn't learn how to cook. They didn't learn how to do the things that they need to do to survive in the adult world. So I think with proper funding, we can really, in proper programming, we can really change those statistics.
Is there something that you contribute to your being successful?
As challenging as this may be for people to understand, as much as we don't want our youth to be teen parents, my daughter grounded me. Having to nurture her and be responsible for this human being, and she should not have had that responsibility on her, right? That shouldn't have been how it was, but it is how it was. And that drove me. I didn't get involved. I couldn't afford to, even if I wanted to. I didn't get involved with drugs. I can remember feeding my daughter her baby food while I'm eating saltine crackers because that's all I could afford. And those times strengthen you, people say, but they traumatize you. So there were people in my past sporadically throughout adulthood that got me to where I am, but I've only been successful where I'm comfortable within the last 5 to 7 years. And it didn't have to take that long. It just did not have to take that long. So I lived a life of being, I've always had an ability to be careful with my finances. So it's okay there. It's always good with my money in respect to living within my means, no matter what those means were. So that probably saved me. And I don't know where that came from. I honestly don't. I don't. But there's no single person, if you will. Some of the caregivers at the group home were beneficial. I had one foster parent of the 8 that planted some good seeds. But beyond that, it was me. And it didn't have to be that hard. It just did not have to be that hard.
Tell everybody the website again to go donate their time, their money. Tell everybody what that is.
www.keystepnc.org. Getting involved. The Getting Involved page will give them great ideas of what they can do to help.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for being on here. I know you love these interviews. And
I don't, but there's nothing I won't do to help these youth. So I do them, and I'll get more comfortable with them as we grow. So
well, you did a great job today. So keep doing them, please. You're doing amazing work. I have a soft spot for anybody in the nonprofit world. It's so hard to start them, to run them, to fund them, and to maintain that balance because it becomes your life. And I just thank you so much for doing the work you're doing for so many people already. I can't wait to see how this grows.
Thank you. It really is my privilege. It is. They're great youth, and they can do something with their lives with the right support.
And like I told you, when you're ready for your first fundraising gala, I know a host.
Yes, I do too, and I love it. Thank you so much. That's so generous of you, Richard. I really appreciate it.
Well, we'll be in touch. Deanna, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Richard.
We'll take a break and be right back after this. This will give you time. There's also a QR code on your screen, so this will give you time to donate during the commercial. Okay, we'll be right back.
You know what would be better than watching this commercial? Watching your commercial. Scan the QR code or visit makeyourdayrricher.com/advertising to start promoting today.
Oh, we're back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Are you looking to become a more effective leader or to navigate change in today's world? My next guest is a master of both. He's a retired Navy SEAL officer turned CEO of a healthcare company And because he's not busy enough, he also is the author of 3 insightful business books, including Be Nimble, Be Visionary, and his newest, Be Different. He's here to share his expertise on leadership, change, and creative thinking. So please welcome Marty Strong. Well, good morning, sir.
Morning, Richard.
How are you?
Doing pretty good. Not too bad.
Good. Thanks for being here. I want to start with your book, Be Different. Tell everybody what that book is about.
Well, the subtitle is, you know, how Navy SEALs and entrepreneurs bend, break, or ignore the rules to get results. And really, the genesis of it is the combination of my time in the SEAL teams, which in the early days, the SEALs and the Green Berets were called unconventional warfare. And I think that's kind of the theme of the book. It's unconventional thinking. It's all about breaking rules of thought and intellectually trying to first grasp that you have all this baggage from being committed to obeying and complying with all the rules about thinking, and how that's kind of crushed the innate ability, your creativity, and your kind of inspirational spirit, so that you can conform and comply and be a good soldier, a good employee, whatever it is that society wants you to be. So that was the genesis of the book. And then it was a little bit more informed in why I really started putting pen to paper, because of my work with Best Robotics, which is a nonprofit helping kids in STEM learning and basically getting them excited about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, through robotics competitions. And it's been around for 31 years. So kind of melded those two together, and I ended up with this book.
Oh my gosh. When I was reading about you, I didn't read that part. I would love to talk about that. Have you come back and talk about that nonprofit, because I think that's amazing. Who would you say that this book is for? Like, who should be reading this book?
Well, actually, you know, my first 2 nonfiction books, Be Nimble, Be Visionary, were focused mostly on organizational leadership, you know, on the management leadership side internally, or the visionary strategic thinking and planning, kind of from an external, looking at the horizon. When I started writing this book, I thought that was going to be the same audience, but I realized that most of what I was writing about, and what I was doing research, talking to brain scientists and other people that knew a lot about what our real true potential is mechanically, how the brain's designed to operate, that I realized, well, this is good for everybody. This is good for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for somebody who's a teenager being told, you know, stop coming up with those stupid ideas and just do what we tell you. You know, here's your linear success path, get good grades, you know, go to a college, get good grades, get a good job, you know, that kind of thing. And it's also highly effective as a message to young adults who, now that they're free from the institutional educational centers and their families, they should have the freedom to start thinking of what do I want to do now? How do I want to impact the world? How do I want to kind of design me? Because I have all this freedom to do that. And instead, they get into their first job and they're told where to park, where to eat, when to eat, how to dress. And next thing you know, they're in their 30s and 40s, and they've basically been complying for most of their lives. So it kind of ran the gamut from that first challenge as a teenager, when you first realize you have to make a decision not to put your hand up and not to open up and say what you think to get along, all the way to later on when it becomes a lifestyle as a professional and as an individual.
Oof. I want to talk about creative thinking, and kind of like what your definition of that is. Because I always talk about creative arts, I talk about that part of everyone's world of being creative, and why it's so powerful in business.
I think society, at least in the last 10, 15 years, has become more and more aware that we're not as creative as we should be or could be. And, you know, all the kind of catchphrases like thinking outside of the box, or, you know, painting or coloring outside of the lines. These are things that are tossed out, but it's a very shallow kind of bumper sticker attempt to point to this problem. And the problem is that creativity is a part of the way the brain functions. You know, brain scientists have discovered that there's 2 switches in your brain that kind of drive what you do, your behaviors in general. One is the task-oriented switch. Think of it, the to-do list. It's very focused on getting things done. It's very focused on minute challenges like threading a needle. And it became very, very important in the survival of ancient humans as they were developing, so that they could make clothing and they could figure out a way to prepare food and do things that kept them alive and also made them stronger over time. The other switch they call the forager or explorer switch. And that's the switch that gave ancient humans the willingness, the drive to leave the comfort of their valley when they were running out of food, all food sources, and they had to go some other place or else they weren't going to survive. And so they had to basically mitigate the risk and go over the next ridge line into the next valley, into the unknown. And then when they found a place that suited their needs, then they could focus back to the task switch. And this was the way human beings were designed to work. Hunker down, stay safe, do all these meticulous activities. But then when it's time to move, you move. Now you have to have the guts to move. Now you have to have the willingness and the sense of purpose that it'll be okay and there's something better just over the horizon. So those two switches are still there. It doesn't matter if you're 65, 75 years old, 6 years old. The difference is, and you can kind of think about it as I'm saying this, what has society basically groomed us and trained us to focus on of those two functions? It's the to-do switch very early on. And anytime you thought of going beyond the boundaries or even talking about going beyond the boundaries, the system, institutions, or families said, well, that's kind of wasted effort, wasted thinking, because what you need to do is this list of stuff that will make you successful someday. And it's all these like, do your homework, get good grades, and all that sort of thing. So creativity is basically just a common capability of the human brain, unless you have a medical impairment, and it's sitting there. It's been sitting there since you were born. And the first part of Be Nimble basically tells everybody about this and says, look, you can shake free of these chains and start to challenge your first impulse when something comes up to either conform to the way people want you to think, or to kind of set that first impulse aside and say, okay, how would I do this different? How could we do this different? How should we do this different? And be willing to talk to lots of people and start getting involved in looking over the ridge to the next valley.
I know you've had obviously multiple careers. You've written all these books. Would you love writing books? Is that like, has that turned into a love for you?
It's I think, yeah, love is pretty strong. I mean, I've got five
A lot of work.
I've got 5 kids and I've got 5 grandkids, the 6th one on the way. And
Oh my gosh.
that's kind of a different level of love. I think that for me, writing is cathartic. I've written 9 published novels. I finished my 10th novel about 2 months ago. I like writing novels more than I like writing business-related books, just because of what we were just talking about. It allows you to be creative. I don't have to.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether the protagonist goes left or right when they get to a street sign. Nobody's going to judge you on whether they should go right or left. You have the choice, or you can make them go straight, or they can forget something, turn around and go back. You have all these, thousands and thousands of opportunities when you're writing fiction to shape the world and shape the imagination and shape the behaviors of all these different characters, or reshape them as you see fit. You can just toss back out and start from scratch if you want. And that's really fun. That's cathartic. It's not, what I do my day job, which is pure business and, numbers and finance and HR and legal and all those kinds of things that you do when you're in business. I write very early in the morning, so I get it all done before the sun basically comes up, and I just plug away at it 7 days a week. And eventually the book's in first draft and I keep moving. So I'm productive or prolific because I have that discipline related to writing. The nonfiction books, the business books, a little bit more difficult because it's not really art on the scale of opera or stage or even the painted medium, but you create something and it's your thoughts, very specific thoughts about the world and your opinions, your philosophies, your observations. And then you take that thing and you toss it into the street and you go, okay, who's going to run over it? Who's going to set it on fire? Who's going to toss it into a trash can? Who's going to ignore it? And so you feel like you're putting a big chunk of yourself out there. And it's cathartic when it's over.
Yeah.
Well, as you're writing it, it's a little stressful because, and everybody that I've helped that are entrepreneurs that have written books, and I've kind of mentored them through it. That's always the thing that's kept them from starting. Who's going to care what I have to say?
Mhm.
They have to get past that. Who's going to care? And I'd tell them, well, you just have to think of an audience of one. Pick one person you think if they read this book, it would change their life or fix whatever it is that you're writing to, and then decide, is that worth it? If it's worth it, then write the book. I guarantee you there'll be more than one person influenced by it. But that's the hump. And sometimes that's every day when you sit down to write,
Yeah, I bet. When does the new book come out? Do you know yet?
Be Different came out in December.
But you just
And
said you finished another one, right? Yeah.
yeah, the novel, it's called The Seventh Sage. So it'll probably come out midsummer.
Okay, good.
I'm shopping at the agents right now. It's so that my first 9 novels is a 4-book series called the Time Warrior Sagas, and it's time travel going back to fight in the days of the Iron Age and the Bronze Age and all that. And then the second series is a 5-book series called Seal Strike, which is about a young SEAL officer as he evolves, and then eventually gets cashiered out of the SEAL teams for all of his injuries and PTSD and everything, but continues trying to help the world along. And this 10th book is not part of those 2 series. I don't know if it'll be a series. I wanted to write about a particular topic. I love archaeology, so it's kind of one of those archaeology mysteries with a lot of bad guys and racing to the end of the storyline to see who's going to own the world or save the world, kind of thing.
That's fun. And I'm assuming available wherever you get your books these days.
Yeah, so I write my novels under M.L. Strong, and I write my my nonfiction books under Marty Strong. But they're all, if you go to martystrong.com, they're all there. They're at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all the novels, all the proceeds go to the SEAL Veterans Foundation.
Oh, wow.
So I started that with book 1, not thinking I was going to write any more novels, but I did.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you come back when any of your books are coming out, because I love that you do both sides of it and kind of stretch both sides of your brain that way, and you get to express yourself through the fiction writing as well. I think that's really cool that you do that. I want to talk quickly about like your number one rule, that everything changes, which when I was reading, I was like, oh, that's so obvious, but I want to get your take on that.
Yeah, I wish I could say it was my rule, but it's an observation that goes back as long as people have been shipping messages on stone. I have a quote that I like to use. It's Madame Curie, and she said, "The universe abhors stasis." So in other words, the universe hates vacuum. It hates anything that's static, and the inference there is that there's nothing that's static. There's nothing that's not moving, changing, evolving, and either minutely or in leaps and bounds in big titanic shifts. And it's a thing that I point to all the time because I run into people where I'm doing consulting, mentoring, and it comes up even when I'm doing speeches in crowd questions, and everybody wants to kind of hold on to the stability that they have. This is back to that, remember that primal instinct to stay in the valley where you're nice and safe and everything. But the problem is what's changing in that paradigm is that you're eating all the nuts, berries, foods, rabbits, deer. Pretty soon there's nothing there. You've eaten all the fish in the stream. And if you stay there, if you don't change, you're going to die. So you have to pack up and go to the other valley, right? And so that holds true with all of us, but it takes a lot longer to burn out a valley in that example than it would be to be in the technology industry and wondering why your one great software product or one great service is suddenly antiquated and you've only been in business for a year. It's because things are moving and changing much, much, much more rapidly than our primitive ancestors had to deal with. And so it's even worse. So if you don't have time to have a bunch of meetings over a couple of months to decide whether you want to pack up and go someplace else, you have to have a mindset where you're constantly in a observation, 360-degree kind of zoom in to where you are, where your feet are planted, always zooming out to as far as you can see in the horizon, maybe just a little bit further. and what's going to happen, what could happen, who could be the one that causes that to happen. Who are our allies now? Who are our potential allies? Where are our resources coming from? Where are our competitors coming from? Who are our competitors now? And what products and services are valuable and perceived as valuable now? And are any of them waning? Are there any others that are taking their place? And you'd be amazed at how many people in business, doesn't matter what industry they're in, when I have conversations with them, they basically planted a flag at some point in the calendar. It might have been 1974 or 1998 or 2016, and they've decided that's the way the world should look and be. And that's their lens. And then they're really surprised and stunned when the world just kind of kicks their butt. And it's like they look like, well, what happened? It just suddenly happened to me. No, it's been happening continually. You just decided not to pay attention to it because it meant you were going to have to change, and nobody likes to change.
I remember back a long time ago when I used to work at Borders Bookstore, and a lot of people would say, but that's the way we've always done it. And I feel like that's the same. And I was like, well, yes, but that's not working. So why don't we try something else? Like that mentality of like, how can we do anything different?
Yeah, I mean, it goes in cycles. I think there's periods of conformity when cultures, because they can lock things down, they become stronger for a period of time. They control, like say the Roman Empire. If you're the ones that make the roads, everybody has to go where your road takes them. And if the only safe way to get mail from point A to point B is to use the Roman mail system, you use the Roman mail system. Nobody ever really had a desire to come up with another way of doing things. But then eventually that starts to crack around the edges. And when that falls apart, it's a free for all, right? Everybody's doing whatever they want to do. And then a century or two go by, and then somebody starts to try to pull it all back together again and consolidate. And whenever you consolidate thought and consolidate technology and the human beings involved in that, there's a perception of safety and serenity and calm. But that doesn't mean things haven't changed. That just means somebody's dammed up the change for a short period of time, so you're not affected by it. But the pressure's still building on the other side of that dam, and eventually it's all going to fracture again. That's why if you're a student of history, human history, you can almost anticipate anything going forward as long as human beings are involved in it. You can sound like a soothsayer. You can say, oh, this is what's going to happen here, this is what's going to happen there, because it's about 99% human nature to behave a certain way in a certain situation.
I can't thank you enough for being here, but I want to know, one, what you love most about your life right now.
I think the best part of my life is that I've been able to do so many different things, and I've come to a point where I realize I have a lot of life to live and to continue to do different things and see different places, and that I have that attitude. I think that makes me happy that I have an attitude at my age that isn't, stuck in the mud or stuck in 1974, and that I can contribute and influence in a positive way, and that my mind has kind of been able to shift to the exploring mode more and more and more frequently as time goes on.
What's the best way that people can connect with you?
Just go to martystrong.com. All my contact information, access to my books, and my speaking programs, all of it's right there, martystrong.com.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Richard.
Yeah, come back anytime. We'll take a break and be right back after this. Don't go away.
Listen, everyone needs a co-conspirator to reimagine their lives and uncover the opportunities in the challenges they face. If you are looking for the place where hope meets possibility and you are ready to create a life of meaning despite the diagnosis, look no further. Helen is a certified professional coach with a background in medical research and an autoimmune diagnosis who brings compassion, empathy, and your best interests to every conversation. Learn more about coaching with Helen at helensampsonmullen.com.
Our number one show of last week is with Becky and Robert, Boardrooms and Battlefield. So make sure you go check out that episode, which it was really good. And speaking of Becky, her new podcast, Gorilla HR, the podcast, which I am lucky enough to get to produce and edit, has a new episode out today wherever you get your podcasts. So take a look at this clip.
I kind of laugh. So I don't have kids, but I have nieces and they're now 19 and 22. But when they were little, my brother would put their allowance, let's say it was $1 on the fridge. And he told them, if you can leave that $1 here all week, I will add a quarter to it. So he was trying to teach them about like interest early on. And I think it worked because we just celebrated the holidays and my nieces were opening some money that they got. And one of them looked at my brother and said, can we put it into one of those accounts that like where it'll grow, it'll make more because I don't need to spend this right now. And I really want it to become more money because she's thinking about some future study abroad and taking some trips. And she's like, I want to be able to do those things. And this will help me if I can just figure out how to use it to my advantage. So I think it's funny that she was taking some of those lessons now. I guess she'll save on the therapy piece of it down the road.
Down the road. Yeah.
It's a great podcast. Comes out every Monday. So go check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Hey, we've got another great show tomorrow. Leighton Campbell is here. He's the author of Your Happiness Equation, which is a new book that just came out very recently. And singer and actress Ann Kittredge is here as well. And I hope you will be too. Now's another really good time to just share the show. There you go. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for all of your support, your views, your downloads, your shares. Go buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/makeyourday-richer. And we'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Go make your day richer. Go make somebody else's day richer. You've made mine by watching this show, and I love you for it. See you later. Bye-bye.